Welcome back to another episode of Learn Dota. This episode is going to cover the ins and outs of going high ground against an enemy team. Now, I know that there's a lot of different situations that happen, but if you take these tips and tricks and you execute them in your play, it's going to give you a higher chance of successfully killing an enemy barracks and helping to win your team the game. Thanks again to Red Bull for supporting the series. Thanks to everybody on Patreon and Twitch that are subbing as well. I appreciate it, guys. Eventually in your Dota games, you have to destroy the Ancient, and the easiest way to accomplish this is by destroying the enemy barracks. But going high ground against enemy teams presents a lot of difficult problems. You have to walk uphill into an enemy base through a choke point. That makes it easier for enemy heroes to land area of effect skills on your whole team. The tower itself gives an advantage because it attacks enemy creeps and heroes and provides true sight of invisible heroes and units. The tower also provides an armor aura to allied heroes, so just dealing physical damage is harder when the tower is standing. On top of that, the vision advantage for the defending team is typically better. Every building in their base helps spot enemies, but pushing heroes don't have as much natural vision, nor can they see uphill when still in the low ground, so spotting enemies to make good initiations is a lot harder. Finally, the best defense is the proximity to their hero fountain. If they get low, they can take a quick dip into their fountain to heal their hero. If they respawn after being dead, the distance between the fountain and the barracks isn't very far, and even if they die in the fight, buying back puts them back in the fountain nearby. All of these defensive advantages make it harder to push high ground and take out barracks, so let's go over some tips to help make going high ground easier for your team. As we learned in the previous team fighting episode, having a hero advantage is the easiest way to go high ground. If you kill the enemy heroes in a team fight before pushing high ground with your creep wave, the remaining enemies aren't going to be able to contest. That means you can easily kill the tower and barracks, assuming you have enough time from the respawns. The respawn timers are the time you have to hit buildings, knowing that any fight before then should be easy for you to win with your hero advantage. If you win a team fight and push across the map to siege a barracks, but only have 15 seconds until the enemy team respawns, then you likely won't have time to take out full buildings. Dealing chip damage for short periods of time can be worth it sometimes, because it makes the next push easier, but you have to wait based on other things that you could do with your time, like roshing or grabbing bounty runes. So when attempting a push, make a guess how much objective you can take, and try not to push the limit. Killing the tier 3 tower is amazing because it opens up the shrines, but obviously collecting a melee barracks on top of that is even better. If you're too limited on time to take a melee barracks, consider the range barracks. It takes less than half as much damage, and it doesn't regenerate either, so any damage dealt will stay for later. Once you disengage from a push, your team needs to retreat together so that your opponents don't get an opportunity to pick off a few of your allies, giving them some comeback gold and experience. Make sure that enemies don't teleport behind your push to their shrine, and force a team fight once your team spreads out through the jungle. Try to leave together as 5 heroes, or make sure that everyone backs into trees to teleport safely at the same time. So that's an easy push when your opponents are already partially dead, but what about a contested push? The most common way to push is with a carry or mid hero in front who's good at dealing physical damage to buildings. That hero can hit the building while their team positions around them. Initiators or stunners should be parallel to the side out of vision. They'll be close to initiation range but out of vision, so they can be a little surprising when they jump in to start a fight. Supports should often be positioned behind the pushing hero to help cover their ally if they get initiated on. Defensive supports are especially important here because they can help counter stuns that will hit your pushing hero while they're in the front of the battle. Keep in mind that supports should almost never show themselves on the back lines of a pushing lineup. Mobile heroes on the enemy team will always be aiming for the defensive or stunning supports, since they help turn battles by locking down enemy heroes or by saving their cores. If there are trees nearby to hide next to, it's helpful to stand in them so it's harder to get spotted. And most importantly, don't stand close to an ally during pushes, even if you're both hitting the tower. At any moment, you're expecting the enemy team to initiate and throw out AoE skills. If you're too grouped up with your team, a smart enemy will catch you with an AoE stun, which helps to maximize their defenses and win the team fight. If the enemy team is ready to teamfight, defensive supports like Dazzle or Shadow Demon should never be hitting the tower since it reveals where they are in a fight, making them easier to silence or stun, and keeping you closer to your carry or other cores. Supports often don't deal very much physical damage anyways, so unless the enemy team is already dead, sitting patiently in the back is much safer. Outside of good positioning, the most important item to have when sieging high ground is an observer ward. You can place observer wards on the high ground of an enemy base to help spot the defending team. With the vision of the enemy, you can better react to their initiations, or even to find openings for your team to start a fight. On the defender side, it's very common for enemies to ward in the places between towers. If an enemy team is pushing, place sentries here to prevent the enemy team from having vision advantage. Just be careful when you kill the ward because enemies might take that moment to initiate on you and kill you. When pushing towers against invisible heroes or initiators with Shadow Blade, it's extremely important that you bring sentries to place outside of tower range where your team is standing. This true sight ensures that enemy heroes can't easily initiate in the middle of your team, or use their invisibility to spot supports for pickoffs. If you try to push without observers and sentries, any teamfight that comes during a push is much less likely to be in your advantage, so weigh whether you're strong enough to force a fight without vision. The best oomph to help you fight in the enemy base is often from Aegis, especially if Aegis is on the pushing hero. Even if they get initiated on and killed, they get to respawn and help your team to ensure a teamfight win. You can also wait to push until you have a large gold and level advantage, since that'll give you more damage, health, and utility against the enemy team. While sieging, it helps to have your creeps alive and hitting the tower. It's extra damage, it's extra health for the tower to attack instead of attacking your heroes, and they provide vision. Lane creeps also prevent backdoor protection on the enemy tower. If any lane creep enters this large area near the tier 2 towers, then backdoor protection gets removed for 15 seconds for all buildings inside the base. Keep in mind that when defending, preventing creep waves from crossing this barrier will enact backdoor protection and make pushing very difficult. If you know an enemy team will be pushing your base, you can always cut the creep wave to prevent further creeps from getting to this line. Wait for the enemy team to push past you, then head for the next creep wave and kill it quickly. If you can cut 1 or 2 waves and have your team deal with the one wave pushing to your base, then you only need to defend the tower for another 15 seconds before backdoor protection kicks in. Don't forget that the other lanes pushing in also unlocks backdoor protection, so you may need to ensure those push out as well. When sieging high ground with your creep wave, you should quickly kill spawning enemy creeps so your creeps get back to hitting buildings. If you aren't tanky enough to hit buildings while taking tower damage, you should probably back away and wait for your next creep wave to approach. Just make sure that you keep an eye on enemy respawns, because small setbacks like this will elongate the time it takes to kill buildings. Glyphs are another great way to delay tower damage for a small period of time to respawn more heroes, but don't forget that the attacking team can also glyph to save their important creep waves from enemy AoE spells and attacks. In a best case, safe scenario for a pushing team, you keep your good positioning and eventually your carry is able to kill the tower because your opponents haven't spotted a good opening yet for initiating. But it's much more common for a fight to start and for things to go crazy. And in this craziness, you need to remember what we learned in the teamfighting episode. Try to maximize your abilities. Affect as many heroes as possible with your AoE skills. Protect your allies from dangerous teamfight abilities or disables, and try to chain stun your opponents to make sure that they die. Retreat from their base together if you're losing the fight, but also be ready to pursue into their base to follow up on your allies' initiations if you're winning the fight. Dota's always going to be a game of tug of war, and base fights are no exception. It's worth diving sometimes to get an important kill or two. But you need to fear buybacks. Buybacks give a defending team an extra hero, and getting enemies to buy back should be looked at as a big win for your team because someone on the enemy team spent a lot of gold. But now you have to fight against an extra enemy hero before you can safely hit buildings again. If your team is out of juice, health, mana, or important abilities are on cooldown, then it's sometimes worth retreating after buybacks because you got your kill, an enemy bought back, and you've secured more advantage. But it's not always that easy if you've been diving past tower. Once you walk past the tower, enemies can teleport behind your hero. That means it's pretty easy for them to force engagements on retreating heroes. So even if you force buybacks from them, if they wipe your whole team afterwards, it's not great for your team. So keep an ear out for the buyback sound after killing important heroes, and make sure that you don't chase so far past the enemy barracks. Otherwise, the hero that buys back is guaranteed to catch you on the retreat and force you to fight. Sometimes it's worth it to ditch your diving allies if they go too far past the buildings. It might be impossible for them to get out of the base while being stunned, slowed, and attacked, and if the enemy team rallies with 5 heroes alive, you might just be dying with them if you try and help. So hold your good formations when pushing. Use your vision and initiation items like Blink to jump on and quickly kill defending heroes. When killing those heroes, don't overextend so far that enemy buybacks force you into a difficult fight that you can't win, which makes their buybacks pay off. If the enemy does buyback, reassess whether you can stay and push. If not, disengage as a team, cut losses if necessary, and teleport away to heal or push other lanes in the meantime. Remember that having teamfight or pushing items helps a lot when sieging high ground. Vlad's provides a damage and armor bonus to heroes and creeps, which helps keep them alive when pushing. Mech and Pipe are great counters against AoE damage, since they can heal damage taken or block magic damage from killing your creeps and buildings. Crimson Guard also works great in pushes because you can shield your allies and buildings, which makes it harder for enemies to win a fight. Solar Crest is one of the best pushing items right now because it gives an ally increased armor and attack speed, meaning you can buff your carry hero to help them kill the tower more quickly and reduce the damage they take while pushing. Other defensive items that can help in the ensuing fights are things like Urn of Shadows. Because it's more dangerous to fight on low health, being able to heal up heroes who disengage from the push can make you feel safe to continue attacking the tower. Glimmer Capes can help enemies who get stunned and engaged on by giving them heaps of magic resistance for a few seconds. If your allies get initiated on, Force Staffs can help push them out of danger so that you could reset the push even after buybacks or disables. We unfortunately don't have time to cover every great pushing hero and item, but this should lay a good foundation to help you increase your team's chances of winning teamfights while pushing, and give you the Rax advantage that your net worth advantage deserves. And that's it for this episode of Learn Dota. Can't go over everything that comes down to all the possible situations of going high ground, but hopefully this was helpful enough that it'll make getting Raxes a little bit easier for you and your team. In the next episode, we're going to cover roaming, which is about moving around the map in the laning stage and helping to make sure that you can win more lanes than just the one that you're currently stationed in.